Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. Good to see you. It's so nice to be here. Andrew, thank you for your kind words. Simca, Kinsale, it's great to be here on the unceded territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And it's great to be here to talk about making life better for British Columbians by not talking about partisan advantage, not talking about how we can outdo someone else, but how we can work together for a better British Columbia, not just today, but election after election after election, where at the end of those elections, we vote for the people that we want, we vote with hope, we vote for a better British Columbia, not fear of something terrible happening, but hope that something good will happen. That's why you're here today. That's why I'm so grateful that we're going to go out onto the streets of Vancouver and get every single vote into the mailbox. Are we going to do it? Andrew made it pretty clear that we've come a long way in the past. It's the 16-month anniversary of our swearing in as a new government. Happy anniversary, everybody. And in 16 months, we've been able to do an awful lot working together. For example, Andrew spoke about student housing in British Columbia. Over 16 years, the former group managed to build 8 units a year, 130 over 16 years. We have committed together 1,100 units already, with many, many more to come, that will relieve pressure in urban centers and provide students with what I used to think was a pretty good life on campus. Of course, you're focused on your grades, you're focused on the work and the weekends, but it's not just in the area of social housing. I just left Selena Robinson at the Nonprofit Housing Association annual meeting here in Vancouver. 1,500 providers of housing for people from every corner of the province. And there had never been a premier attend a conference. And I went as an opposition member with my friend David Eby. I don't see a very long person here. Is David here? David was the housing spokesperson for us at the time. Oh, he's not allowed to be here. I forgot. That's an inside joke. I can't tell you about that. But he'd have to recuse himself, if I can use that word. I know that apparently Donald Trump's not happy with this Attorney General, but I'm really, really happy with mine. So. The Nonprofit Housing Association today, 1,500 providers from every corner of the province. The Premier had never been there before. And what was most staggering about looking at what we've been able to accomplish, working with the Green Caucus, working together for better outcomes for people in a minority that was only supposed to last a couple of weeks. You remember that 16 months ago? Well, we're looking pretty good today, and I think we're going to be looking even better on November 30th when we count all the ballots, and we are going to go into a future where everyone else in the world has already been. Progressive governments around the world use proportional representation because it gives people something to vote for, not something to vote against. And when I think of what people voted for during the last election, and Andrew touched upon, the rockiness of our adversarial system, our British parliamentary system, lends itself to that conflict and that tension. But once the votes are cast, and once the votes are counted, the opportunity to come together is there for those who choose to grab it. And I am so grateful that Andrew and my colleagues and his colleagues were able to come together and put in place a government that reflects the majority of votes cast in the last election. Only twice has that happened in BC history. Oops, I'm too close to the microphone. Only twice has that happened in BC history. And if we are successful, with your help, it will happen every time we have an election. What better outcome could we give our children and our grandchildren and their children than an electoral system that allows them to have a government that reflects the diversity of views in our community every single time, not just once every 150 years. Wouldn't that be something? So we took big money out of politics to make sure people were at the center of everything that we did. The next step that we have to take is to ensure that every vote counts. Andrew talked about how it is in many constituencies where you always get a Liberal, you always get a New Democrat, you always get the same thing. That discourages participation, particularly from young people. I got a couple of millennials at home, and I know there's a couple here today. Simca tells me that Pro-Rep is lit. And I know everyone in this room is woke, and that's why you're all here today. But young people are more inclined to participate if they know their vote will matter. If they live in a constituency that always votes left or always votes right or always votes conservative, they're going to stay home because they won't see their values reflected at the end of the day. Proportional representation makes a simple proposition. 40% of the votes will equal 40% of the seats. It's as simple as that. It's not like we've just seen in Ontario, where 40% of the votes led to 100% of the power. Or in Quebec, just months ago, 37% of the vote leads to 100% of the power. And in New Brunswick, the most odd of oddities, 38% of the vote led to fewer seats than the party that had 32% of the vote. So if you need an argument on the doorstep today, just say New Brunswick and try and explain to people how first past the post is democratic when the majority of votes, even in a bizarre first past the post system, does not lead to a good outcome for the people who voted on that day. Every vote counts. That's what ProRep's all about, and I'm so grateful that you're here today to go out onto the streets and make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for those who will come after us. We've been able to accomplish a great deal by working together, but more than anything, I believe we've sent a signal to British Columbians that better things can happen when we work together. The divisions between Andrew and I, my colleagues and his colleagues, is infinitesimal. I look across the floor at the Liberal group, and there are divisions within that group. There's Conservatives, there's ultra-Conservatives, there are wildly ultra-Conservatives, and there are Liberals. But they're all working together under a system that has benefited them from the beginning of time. And that is why they're so desperate to hang on to it. I stand here before you with my colleagues and with the Greens and with the New Democrats to say this is not about partisan advantage. Far from it. This is about making sure that every vote counts. We're putting ourselves out with you to say the future belongs to those who show up happily and hopefully casting a ballot for the candidate of their choice, not because they're fearful of what the outcome will be, because they're hopeful and optimistic of the extraordinary things we can do when we work together. Everywhere you look where proportional representation is in place, even in the Liberal leadership race, where had they used first past the post, Andrew Wilkinson would have come third. They instead used a version of proportional representation that they do not want to allow British Columbians to use. They like what works for them unless it doesn't work for them, and when the club gets together, they'll find a way to get the best outcome for their tribe. Well, we need to put the tribes to one side. We need to focus on unity of purpose, and that unity of purpose is changing our electoral system to lead Canada into a future that is not extreme, but is built on cooperation rather than conflict. That's what we want in our families. That's what we want in our communities. Why can't we have it in our legislature? I know we want to get outside because it's a gorgeous day, but I want to tell you a little bit, for those who are unaware, I have had an interesting road on my way to being a strong supporter of proportional representation. In 2005, in the first election that I ran in, I was just the NDP guy on the ballot. I had not been on the school board, I had not been a community activist, I coached a little bit of hockey and basketball, but I was the NDP guy. No one knew who the heck I was. And at the same time, there was a referendum, you'll remember, on the single transferable vote. And I looked at it and I dismissed it because I knew what I knew. And I was putting my name forward, and if I got one more vote than the closest person to me, I'd get elected. It worked for me. I was elected, and I took my place representing my community in our Legislative Assembly. And then for 4 years, I had zero impact on the policies and the procedures of the government of British Columbia. I had lots to offer. More importantly, my constituents had lots to offer, and they were shut out because of the flag that I had carried on a day in May in 2005. So when I had an opportunity in 2009 to vote for the single transferable vote, which had not changed a bit in that time, I enthusiastically said yes, because anything was better than the system that we had that denied the rights of my constituents to have a voice in government. So if I can change my mind, if this leopard can change its spots, then surely to goodness, we can go out and talk to people and tell them that there is a better way. It's called cooperation. It's called ProRep. It's lit, and if we were all woke, that's exactly what we would do. So I understand some people have brought their ballots. today. Can you hold up your ballots if you brought some today? There's some at the back. Okay. So Rabbi Calon, I think, is leading us out to the phone booth, or the phone booth, turning to Superman, out to the mailbox. So